Right, so let this sink in. Somehow it is arguably the second most egregious part of this new reporting that high-level officials in the Trump administration still appear to be sharing sensitive information in cavalier fashion on the messaging app called Signal. But just wait until you hear what they were saying and messaging on Signal. The back and forth in question between Anthony Salisbury, who is a deputy to Stephen Miller, and Patrick Weaver, who is an advisor to Pete Hegseth, happened in a crowded space, so crowded and so public, in fact, that someone was able to take pictures of their conversation and catch their exchange and then share them with a reporter at the Minnesota Star Tribune so we could all see them. Contained therein, among dozens of messages, a discussion about the deployment of the Army's vaunted 82nd Airborne, an elite infantry division, a deployment not to a faraway combat zone, but to the streets of, wait for it, Portland, to crack down on protests there. Hegseth would eventually send 200 National Guard troops to Portland, but the messages illustrate the lengths that the administration is apparently willing to go in its ongoing takeover of American cities. Amy and Melissa are still here. Amy, I know there's no bottom, and I know it's foolish to look for one, but the 82nd Airborne, just give us a little bit of your reaction to this story and the history of the 82nd Airborne.
Yeah, well, the 82nd Airborne is one of the most elite units that our country has. And these are the best trained soldiers, some of the best trained soldiers in our country. And the thing about it is we have threats in China and Russia and North Korea. And we have to have these soldiers at the ready to go around the globe at a moment's notice. And the idea that you would just send them to Portland, Oregon, and in order to make you look strong, it's really just completely reckless in terms of national security. That's for one. And that's on top of the Signal issue, which is a totally separate issue. Well,
let's deal with the Signal issue. I'm not going to play this, but I want to read you what Hegseth said yesterday on leaks. I'm just going to spare everyone the audio-visual element of Pete Hegseth. So Hegseth goes on Fox and says, so we're doing everything we can protocol-wise to make sure that leaks are minimized. Unfortunately, we live in an era where people do things like that. Journalists solicit things like that, which is disgusting. When journalists are saying, hey, send us classified information, that's why we have a policy at the Pentagon around what kind of conduct journalists will have in the building. We take these things seriously. Leaks are a problem. And then Ducey says, will you start using polygraphs to catch them? And Hegseth says, I think we'll use whatever tools we need, ultimately, especially with our own service members who can never be party to that, or our own civilians who can never be party to leaking. So that's how they're going to deal with leaks. But what about disclosures on Signal? I mean, it's incredible that they keep coming. The calls are coming from inside Pete Hegseth's personal staff.
Yeah, and I think what this shows is that Pete Hegseth and his team have not learned the lesson from whatever you want to call it, Signalgate earlier in the year. I mean, Signal is not a secure means of communicating national security and military matters. And to be talking about this type of stuff loudly in a public place is JV level incompetence. And remember, this Pete Hegseth is the guy that set up a text chain earlier this year and proactively pushed classified information, stuff that he knew was classified, to people he knows did not have a classified clearance. And that's in addition to putting it all on an unsecured app on your phone. I mean, it doesn't get much more dumb than that, folks. And he's not taking responsibility for any of this. It would get anyone else in the military fired or prosecuted. That's how recklessly incompetent this man is.
I'm not going to dignify the White House Keystone Cop response, but suffice to say, there were pallbearers involved and a whole, everything except taking responsibility for the unfortunate disclosure of a potential movement of the 82nd Airborne.
Well, The last time I was on your show, we talked about the effort to purge the federal government and particularly the intelligence community of individuals who are deemed disloyal, either for partisan reasons or whatever. And again, this was a purging of expertise. And I think I said then that's a real issue in terms of our national security. And I talked about 9/11 and the fact that we had this long period between the election of 2000 and when the Bush administration took over. And that was blamed in the 9/11 Commission report for the failures that occurred in the intelligence community on 9/11. Not only are we seeing these purges, which are making us less intelligent in every possible way, now we have these loose lips, sink ship signal chats. I mean, like, the call is coming from inside the House. This is a real issue that is making us unsafe as a broad matter, not just on the margins. Like, this is a big deal.